Well, hello there, Internet, and welcome to another episode of the Riley and Friends podcast, where we discuss basically whatever we want. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Corinne and Gabe, and I guess, since it's Halloween, I guess we'll maybe start on some spooky stuff. Gabe, I hear you have been I hear you have been watching a lot of horror movies lately. What have you seen?
Yeah, a lot. I got a bit ahead because I can't have time every day. But here's what I've seen so far. I'm 24 down on my 31. X and Pearl. I started with those two,
Okay.
and then I saw Men, which was another one from the guy that did Ex Machina.
Yeah.
And I saw Freaky because for a change. And then I saw Bodies, 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 and Megan. And the first Saw because I realized I've seen literally none of those.
It's been so long since I've watched a Saw movie. Like I watched the first one,
no,
and then I haven't seen another one.
I've actually never seen a Saw movie.
You know what? The first one's pretty good.
I hear the new one's pretty decent.
Yeah, I hear the new one's good.
Yeah.
In Saw, in the first one, is that the Pit of Needles? Is there a Pit of Needles?
No, I think that might be 2.
Okay, then I've seen at least part of 2. Because then I had to nope out because I have a thing about needles. And I was like, you know what? This series isn't for me.
Yeah, I stopped because I heard there's things with eyeballs. And I'm like, that's my no crossing zone.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
Particularly needles and eyeballs is a big one for me.
Yeah,
That's a big no.
I don't. I've heard that there's a thing with that in the new Evil Dead. So I'm like, maybe we'll wait.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets close, but they don't actually... I don't think the Evil Dead they actually go into the eyeball. Like it gets close.
The Evil Dead that was before the most recent one. So the last time, like when they did like the reboot or the sequel, it wasn't super clear. That one I almost passed out and I went to it. I saw it in theaters. And I was there with a friend and like it just had so many of my very specific icks.
Yeah,
because I can watch an Evil Dead movie, no problem. I can watch most horror movies, no problem. But I have very specific icks. They tend to be needles, things going into bodies that don't belong in bodies. Like someone can get stabbed by a knife as many times and it doesn't bother me. Someone gets like glass in them, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, the new one you would not like.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know. Isn't there like a glass swallowing scene or something?
Yeah, there's a scene where someone just like chews up glass.
Yeah.
I have something in my tummy.
And I don't know. It depends on how campy it is. But yeah, like I have a thing about things that don't belong in bodies going in bodies that like really squicks me out. So the last Evil Dead, I almost passed out. Like my friend was beside me and suddenly I just went white and like I was just kind of like swaying and she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I'm like, no, turn me around, please. Because we were at like Hollywood Palm, so we had like the swivel seats. So I was like, please make me not look at this screen.
That'd be a really awkward movie to eat at dinner too.
Yeah, well, thankfully we ate early, so like we were eating like during previews and like before the nasty started.
I was gonna say not the eat and watch kind of movie.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, sorry to derail.
No, some of these I feel like that'd be a good point to discuss. I saw Train to Busan because I never saw that.
I really want to watch that.
Really good. Do not watch if you're in a dark mood. Holy crap, even I thought they pulled some punches they didn't need to pull. I saw Candyman, the new one. I have to see the original. That's one of my last ones. I saw Bones and All.
I was going to say, what'd you think of the new one?
I liked it. It was good.
I liked it. It was good.
I saw Bones and All, which I think like a movie like nobody saw, but I definitely want to discuss it if not, because so here's the premise. It's a cannibal romance.
Oh,
okay.
And it's also a horror movie because, it's one of the few movies that like, because they played it so romantic and happy for parts of it, almost made me vomit, and not in a bad way, just because the switch was so like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like it was psychologically bending in such a unique way. Timothy Chalamet's like being cute Timothy Chalamet, and then he's eating a person, and you're like, where was the switch? I missed the switch. What happened here?
That reminds me of I can't think of the name right now. 1 second. I need to do a Google.
You're good.
I know it's very similar.
I would recommend it if you don't have a queasy stomach, because it's a really, really good movie. And it's not over the top gross in the way you're thinking, actually. They don't do a lot of like gross out humor or gross out guts and gore just for the sake of it. It's just that the acting is so good and the main villain is so creepy that when they're doing it, you're just like, I can hardly watch you.
So if you liked that and were able to stomach it, I would recommend Fresh. I think it came out last year.
I was looking at that.
It's really good. It's really well done. It's basically a movie that starts out as if it's going to be like a romance or romantic comedy kind of thing. It's about a young woman. It's about like the struggles of dating in like the modern society, like how you never know if this stranger you're going to meet on the internet is going to be a murderer, essentially, is like what it's about. Like, you know, she does all the right things. She's like, this is who I'm seeing, like texting her friend and being like, this is the picture. And, you know, like she has a couple really terrible dates. And then she just meets up with this guy, like I think on happenstance. Like I can't remember how. It wasn't even through an app or anything.
It's Bucky, isn't it? The Winter Soldier.
It is. It's Sebastian Stan. Yep. And he's incredibly charming. Like he's kind. He seems very sweet. And she kind of drops all of the like the safety precautions she would usually do, or like lets them slip, because like he just seems so kind, like such a nice person. And they really hit it off. And, you know, turns out he's a cannibal. And,
interesting. I might have to watch that.
It's really good.
I recommend
really
Bones
good.
and All as well. It's one of those films where you're like, I don't see how they could make this work, but they really, really, it's like actually sweet at times. And you're like, how? These people are all cannibals. But it's honestly really more of a mindfuck film than it is a horror movie, but that's why I liked it, I think. I don't know.
I would just say, like, Fresh, I think, is a horror movie, but it's a very, like, it's about the horrors of modern dating, I suppose. Like,
let's be real, that is a horror.
Yeah, like, it's about, like, the horror of having to trust people and the horror of when you fuck up, you know? Like, what happens when you trust the wrong person and get yourself in a situation you can't get out of.
Online dating is scary.
Yeah. It's like the horrors of online dating, the horrors of dating in the modern age. You know, you don't really know someone until you know someone. And it's a film that has a very satisfying ending. So, I highly recommend it. Very good.
I was kind of thinking, you know how online dating is. It's like, oh, you seem pretty cool. You seem pretty cool. That's a big red flag.
How big is the red flag? How many red flags am I willing to accept?
Like, likes video games. He's got a great sense of humor. He collects bones. What kind of bones? I didn't ask. Oh.
He's really into food. How do I take that?
Let's see. I was doing a lot of the classics because, well, I'll get into this in a second, but I might as well do it now. Horror movies was weird for me. I never liked them, or at least I thought I didn't, but I think I was just a kid that didn't like jump scares and gross out gore, because I love Stephen King, and Shaun of the Dead is like one of my favorite movies of all time. So I think I just don't like ridiculous gore for the sake of ridiculous gore. Like, if it doesn't serve any purpose, I don't care. And I think that's why I avoided horror movies. But so then I've decided, well, I probably have been reading this the wrong way, and we'll do the 31 for 31 and try to educate myself real quick.
No, I'm with you. I didn't like horror movies as a kid.
Were you similar to that?
Well, it wasn't just the gore stuff. I just, I was a very anxious kid, so it's just like, I'm already nervous and scared about stuff. I don't really want to be nervous and scared about stuff when I'm supposed to be entertained.
Yeah, I get that.
And so, like, I didn't like horror movies till I was, like, in my 20s.
That was jump scares for me. I was like, I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't like it.
See, I always liked, I had two different kinds of horror movies that I liked. I was very particular. I either wanted something that had, like, kind of like a thrillery psychological component, because I wanted it. I knew very early like what I liked. I wanted it to be, it wasn't just about the jump scares. You could have jump scares, but there needed to be an atmosphere that was like giving it to me. And then I also liked campy horror and horror comedy. So like I knew very early what I liked. So like I was able to find the ones I liked. And but it was, I had friends who were into like just the really gory stuff, or like the, you know, this is just a horror movie for the sake of being gross, and you know, and so like I would watch some of those and I'd be like, I so don't care.
I mean, some of it's fun, like if you can like make that but into like a satisfying like movie that's well made and well put together. I think there's merit to it. Like the new Evil Dead is kind of like that. Like it's a fun horror movie. Like it's not even that scary, but it's fun, like in a very twisted sense of way.
And that kind of dips a little bit into the campy aspect, because Evil Dead has always been campy in a way. It has a sense of
the campy sense is what makes it fun for me.
Yeah, because you can tell when a horror movie is having fun, and that is honestly in almost all media that I enjoy. Unless I'm going for something where like it has an oppressive atmosphere. Basically, every other atmosphere I want in something I'm watching is, I can tell they were having fun making this, you know, like I just want to know they were having a good time. And there's certain horror movies, you watch them and you're like, yeah, they were having a good fucking time being murdered right there. They were enjoying themselves.
Renfield? I saw that before I started this challenge, but
I didn't.
You should watch it. It's Nicolas Cage as Dracula in a horror comedy.
Holt.
And it's great. It's so
really
funny.
Good. I enjoyed Renfield a lot. Yeah, like that's the kind of stuff where like I really enjoy myself, is because you could tell they're just having so much fun with it.
Arguably too much fun in Nicolas Cage's point.
Yes, Nicolas Cage was loving being Dracula. It was like, and I mean, he's been a vampire before, so you know he was really playing it up.
You don't say.
That's why it worked, though.
Yeah.
So let's see. I did the classics because I hadn't seen most of these. So I went to the first Nightmare on Elm Street, the first Friday the 13th, the original Exorcist, The Lost Boys, and Hellraiser. And then I jumped around. I saw a movie called The Mist, because this is what everyone says about The Mist, the Stephen King adaptation with the darkest ending in history. And I'm like, okay, kind of curious now. And I can confirm, yep.
I watched The Mist in theaters. I don't remember watching it. I remember like 2 scenes. Like, I don't
remember the ending is one of them?
No. I've completely blocked it out. I remember like one scene where everybody's like, they're like, people are in like a building that has a lot of windows, like in the front.
Yeah, it's a grocery store.
There's a grocery store, yeah. And you just see like the mist outside. And that is literally essentially all I remember about this movie is that one scene. And I'm like, I watched this in theaters and it is gone.
Well, I won't spoil it because I think it should never be spoiled, but they were correct in their assumption that even Stephen King thought the ending was dark, and that's how you know.
Oh, I know the ending. I haven't seen the movie, but I
know the ending.
Yeah. I've completely forgotten the ending. I have vague inklings. I know that if I started watching again, it would all start rushing back, but it's just one of those movies. It's like how I say that I could almost never be spoiled for anything, because you'll say something, and then by the time I actually go and watch it, it's like the information's gone. He doesn't stay. It's fine.
Gone to the vault.
Yeah, it's in the vault. I locked it.
Not especially like an amazing movie, but the ending is certainly memorable. I'll say that.
Yeah, I remember it not being an amazing movie. That's what I also remember. But I don't remember the ending at all.
Well, if you care to watch it again, otherwise just Google the ending on YouTube, because good God, they made a choice there.
And make sure you get context there too. Yeah. I like if you see like the final scene. Yeah. Or like one of the, like the scene by itself where it's just the mist.
Yeah.
Man screams at sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of need the context for what it's about, because I was originally curious about it, because I don't know if it was Netflix or something, they were posting like the last scene where the guy is yelling.
Yeah.
And it's just like they're like, this is the darkest ending in history, and I'm like, This is just a man yelling at the sky. What is the context for this man yelling at the sky that makes it so depressing? And then you read it, it's like, oh.
Speaking of Stephen King adaptations, I watched Rose Red recently, which
I don't know that one.
So it was a TV miniseries that aired in the early 2000s. And I watched it like on TV back then. And it is based on the Winchester House. So if you're unfamiliar with the story of the Winchester House, Sarah Winchester, I think her name's Sarah. Anyway, the lady of Winchester House.
The lady of the manor.
The lady of the manor. Her entire family died in various ways. And a psychic, like a medium, a hoaxy woman, told her that the reason why this happened was because the Winchester family made the Winchester rifle, which had taken so many lives. And so their family was essentially cursed by all the lives that had been taken by the gun they had made. And so the legend goes that this medium told the lady of the manor that she would be killed, like she would die, unless she continued to build in the house. If the house finished being built, she would die. And so she built a bunch of weird rooms, like rooms that like upside down rooms, stairs that went nowhere, doors to nowhere, you know, just like if you go to the Winchester House, it is a weird fucking house with just like illusion rooms and weird rooms. And you go in and you're like, what is the purpose of this room? You know? And you know, a lot of that is all legend. It's believed that actually what happened is a medium did tell her something like that, but maybe she didn't necessarily believe it. But the reason why she kept building is because she had an interest in architecture, unlimited money, and was alone. Like, you know, her husband had died, her kid had died, or, you know, she was like, what else am I going to do? I'm just going to keep building my house, you know, and I have an interest in architecture, so I'm going to do some weird stuff. But regardless, Rose Red is about a fictionalized version of this, for like the family instead is like an oil tycoon, and the house is called Rose Red. Essentially, it's a very similar legend where the family was thought to be cursed, or the land was cursed, and the lady of the manor was told, if you stop building, you will die. And so she kept building and building and building, and the house became massive and huge. But then the weird thing was people started disappearing in the house. And so it's all about this house and how the house actually has like a life of its own in a way. And like even after the lady of the manor died or disappeared, like she basically just walked off into the house and was never seen again. The house continued to grow and change seemingly at will. And so a scientist at a university, like a psychologist who studies the paranormal, wants to bring a bunch of psychics into the house to try and get it to do something, because the house is thought to be like a dead cell, like all the paranormal energy that was in it is gone because it's been closed off for like 30 years or something. And so she wants to bring a bunch of psychics into it to wake it up so she can get real footage of paranormal events. And that's like where the story takes place. And it's all about like these psychics exploring this house and all this weird shit happening. And it's just like, it's a really fun story. And I really recommend it. You can find it, I think, on, I think it's on Hulu now. And this is like one of the first times I'd seen it online. You could also find it on YouTube, but like it's going to be higher quality from, you know, a streaming service versus somebody just uploading it onto YouTube.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it's a really interesting story. And if you have any interest in the Winchester House, like this is a very fun like adaptation of what was a real story.
That sounds, yeah. No, I like the Winchester House.
I'm interested.
Yeah, it's long. I mean, it's a miniseries, but
well, yeah, Stephen King.
Yeah.
There's a new one too that I'm going to watch probably at the very end of this. But has anyone heard of The Fall of the House of Usher?
Oh yeah, I was watching a preview for that yesterday, and I want to watch it so bad.
I want to see it, and I'm a huge fan of Mike Flanagan.
Yep, that's why.
I loved I've loved his movies, and I love Midnight Mass.
I haven't seen that one yet. I need to see it.
Midnight Mass is on my list. I really wanted to watch it when it came out, but I was super depressed. And I heard it was not something to watch when you're super depressed. So I'm like, I'll put that away for when I'm feeling better. I feel better now, but now I don't have the time. And I'm like...
It's not a depressed. It's like, you should not watch it when depressed.
Yeah.
I've seen his Hill House ones, which were really good.
Yeah.
But that one's the Edgar Allan Poe modern retellings?
The Fall of the House of Usher, or...
That was what I remember reading, is that he took Edgar Allan Poe stories and did a modern take on them, which sounded fucking incredible. That's like right up my alley.
And Mark Hamill.
Yes, yeah.
I know.
It is Edgar Allan Poe, yeah. Because I was pretty sure it's Edgar Allan Poe, but I wanted to make sure before. I was like, yes.
And his next project is, if he gets it off the ground, he's trying to do the Dark Tower, which he's the only man on the planet I trust with this.
Be a good pick for the Dark Tower.
Any sidetracking, I guess. I watched The Lost Boys, something called No One Will Save You on Hulu, which is it's like every now and then Hulu puts out a direct to Hulu movie that's actually a really good movie. Like the last one was Prey.
Yeah. I was seeing the trailers for No One Will Save You, and
good.
It looked good. So
it's almost wordless. There's like 6 words in the whole film. It stars Caitlin Dever. She was in, what was she in? Booksmart.
Booksmart.
Oh yeah.
Smart. She's fantastic. I think she's always pretty great in everything, but this is how to say this without spoiling it, but the main character you see is like completely isolated from everyone, and not because she wants to be, and you don't really know why. And throughout the movie, they basically tell you what happened, and it's also, not spoil it. It's a spooky thing, but it's like little bits. I'll give you a tiny spoiler. So it involves aliens. That much is pretty clear, but I'm not going to ruin it.
Yeah.
But essentially, she gets invaded by random aliens one after another, and they're like all different kinds of aliens. And that's not a spoiler. You see it in the trailer, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But that's like the premise is Caitlin Dever versus aliens, but then it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was on my list. I'm hoping that in the next, week I'll have time to really watch some things, because I've been so busy. Like I watched Rose Red when I was recovering from my updated COVID vaccine. Maybe a weird choice, but I wanted to watch it.
Could have been worse. You could have watched, what was that, Infection movie?
Yeah. And I watched the first Final Destination for the first time in a really long time.
See, that's the thing. Like, I never liked horror movies, but boy, I always loved those. I've seen all of those.
Yeah. Well, and those were very my style, because they're kind of campy. They're also
hilarious.
Like they're funny. They're about like the atmosphere, because you're like always looking for clues. Like,
and they always pull the cord and do something stupid instead. They're like, oh, a glass panel. He's gonna die by that. Oh, nope, he tripped and broke his head off. Oops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like there's all these clues, and then they're like, nope, it's this.
She's going suntanning. She's gonna burn to death. Oh, nope, I see. She was electrocuted on her way out the door. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's so funny. So I watched the first one. I plan to watch like the second one.
They're all pretty fun.
They're all pretty fun. Because I remember the first and the second one specifically. I don't really remember. No, I remember the first, second, and third one, because the first, second, and third, because the first one is the plane crash.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is the car crash.
The bridge, right?
It's with the wood falling off.
Famous wood.
The famous one,
famous wood that to this day affects me when I'm driving.
All of us. Yeah.
I still can't drive behind wood hauling trucks.
Yeah. The like massive pileup that's caused by this wood. And then the third one is the roller coaster. So like those are the three I remember.
They kind of blur together to me.
Yeah, they all kind of blur together, but like I remember the actual accidents, and I remember some of the characters. But yeah. So I've maybe I'll watch some more of those, but I watched the first one and it actually holds up pretty well. Like it's still pretty good. Like it held up.
Have you seen them, Riley? They're pretty fun.
I have not, but they've always looked fun.
They're fun.
Hilarious.
I recommend it. They're really good. They're so funny, and They're creative. We'll say that.
That's the fun part about them is they're
yeah.
very creative with the kills.
Yeah. You're just always looking forward to what are they going to do next?
It's almost the joke of it. I remember watching a couple of them with David and be like, I think it's going to be this. And he's like, I think it's going to be this. It was not either of those.
Yeah. And then not even horror, but just spooky season themed. I watched Over the Garden Wall. I introduced you to a friend who had never seen it.
It's so good.
It's so good, and they loved it. So I was so glad I was able to introduce them to it. But yeah, Over the Garden Wall, it's a classic. You have to watch it every year.
Oh yeah, I love Over the Garden Wall.
And they were gonna remove it from.
Yeah.
They were gonna.
Did they change their mind because people got mad?
I know it's still on. It's on Hulu, so that's
then yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
it's there.
If it's on Hulu, I mean, I don't know if it's still on Max.
Yeah, I think it got removed from Max, but it's on Hulu. So.
Can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Let's see, where was I? I watched The Rental. I think. Sorry, go ahead, Riley. Go ahead.
I was about to say the real scary thing in real life is David Zaslav.
Yes, he's the real villain.
The real villain all along.
Yeah.
It was David all along.
I knew it too. We always knew.
It was a foregone conclusion.
Let's see. I watched The Rental. It was just one I randomly picked up. It's what's his name? Younger Franco brothers directing debut film about people that go into a rental home and the scary shit that we don't realize could be happening because we don't know the places. It's kind of like the most obvious, easy premise that takes a really fun, interesting turn.
And I worked at the car dealership for a month because I was not a very good car saleswoman. I'm
imagining you trying to sell a car and
it doesn't go well.
No.
What does it take to get you in this baby?
You can fit so much spaghetti in this car.
Sir, would you like to buy this car? No, I was told one of the things that has stuck with me when trying to sell a used car is the person that taught me is just like, probably don't buy used cars. If you buy a used car, you're buying someone else's problems. And so that's kind of always stuck with me whenever if I ever buy something used. It's like I'm inheriting someone else's problems.
Yeah, I wish you hadn't said that because I'm going to remember that. I'm cursed with that knowledge.
Anytime I okay, so this is kind of dark. That just makes me think, what if someone was murdered in that car or was murdered with that car or
murdered with that car?
Just the various iterations of what happens if you buy a used car that's been tied to a murder and you don't know, and then later
the police
show up at your door?
That's funny. I was thinking like the Stephen King, Christine, the car's alive thing.
The car could also be alive. I was talking more realistic problems, but
ghost car.
It could also be ghost car.
This car is leading to see a whole nother life. Smoking. Don't even know. So the rental was pretty good. Let's see. I'm gonna skip that one to the end because that requires a discussion. I saw Let the Right One In, which was
Ooh, I love that.
I don't even remember what language it was because I had subtitles on, but it's a vampire movie that is very, very good. I watched VHS, the first one, and I still don't really know what it was about, other than that it was very interesting.
Yeah.
And then the last four are probably the best ones. I watched just recently The Thing, which is God tier movie. Of course, the original.
Yeah. Wait. Which original?
Well, I didn't realize. Was there one before John Carpenter?
Because technically John Carpenter's The Thing is a remake.
Oh, then that's the one.
I hear the original before John Carpenter is really good too. But the John Carpenter one's the most famous one.
Yeah, the John Carpenter one is a classic.
Not only does it hold up, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It is it's one of those movies that has the tension, it has the atmosphere, it has so much more going for it than just this is just a horror movie, it's so good. If you haven't seen The Thing, see
all the performers in it are so great too. They really nail it. Yeah. I had never seen it. I wanted to for a long time, and I was like, if I'm doing this has to be one of the ones.
I had a John Carpenter movie this year that was like that. That I saw last week that was like that I'd been wanting to see.
Which one?
They Live.
Oh,
They Live is on my list. I've always wanted to watch it.
It's so much damn fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a really good movie. It's one of the most paranoid movies I've ever seen because, technically it's kind of like, wow, these conspiracy theorists were onto something.
Yeah.
but it was like just so good. But it was good in terms of like building tension, and like also like and showing like, fuck, the aliens have taken over the world. But it's also kind of like just fun because it has an action star and it kills aliens.
Rowdy Piper.
I might have to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Is that what that's from? Oh my gosh.
Yes, yeah. It's been on my list for a really long time. Because I think I watched it when I was young. Because it definitely seemed like something I would have watched with my parents. Because my parents were into I watched a lot of things I shouldn't when I was young with my parents. And I think that was one of them where like I know I've technically watched it. But all I have is the glimpses that I remember from like being 5, where it's like, I don't remember this movie at all.
It also has one of the most glorious hand-to-hand fight scenes I've ever seen in any movie, just because of just how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, the scene is over now. Nope, it's not over now. Okay, the scene has to be over. No, the fight scene's still going. Is it over? No. Why do I even ask? Of course it's not over yet.
You sold me. This has got to be added to the list then.
Oh. Maybe I'll put that to top of my list because now that you mention it, I need to watch it again because I know I've watched it, but have I watched it? Not as any sort of cognizant being. I would think I was like 5.
Let's see, the last 3. I'm going to save one I watched earlier, but I sadly had only ever seen the first Evil Dead. So, of course, we had to fix this.
Yeah,
so yesterday I watched Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, and of course, S tier perfect. They're fantastic. I don't know why I never watched them.
Some of my favorite movies. If you want to know something about me, know that those are some of my favorite movies I've ever seen.
I knew, kind of like The Thing, I knew I would like them. I just hadn't for so long. So good. And the last one, I have to say this because I'm hoping I can convince one or both of you to check it out. It's called Mad God. I don't know if you know anything about it, but it's a claymation movie that took 30 years to make. And it is the most fucked up, strange thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So the only plot in the whole thing that you can understand is sort of a marine kind of scientist, marine guy whose claymation goes down into what is sort of hell, I guess, to visit and understand what's happening. And what happens next is all confusing slime monster violence that I can't quite put words. It was one of the times we were watching. It's not very long. It's like an hour 15, and you're like, they can't possibly do more with it. Okay, yes, they can. You're like, I don't know what's happening, but it's riveting and horrifying. And
this is a horrifying fever dream that I can't leave.
I don't know what to think if I love or hate this, but I can't stop watching it. And I don't know. It took him 30 years to make, so I was like, I probably should watch this to honor that. And I was like, 30
years, yeah. I'm gonna have to look this up because I'm intrigued.
Yes.
So he's apparently a very famous visual effects guy that had been doing stuff in other movies for a very long time, and had just been quietly making this horror movie for 30 years.
Well, and with claymation, if it's like just one dude basically doing it, it is gonna take 30 years.
So I think what I did is the Shudder, like you can do the 7-day free trial on Shudder and then immediately cancel it so I can just watch this one movie.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. It depends. If you like to be disturbed by claymation, it's worth it. It's impossible it's one of those, like, you literally can't describe it because I don't know if even he understood what was happening.
It just makes me think.
It's about the journey. Okay.
Are either of you familiar with the Magnus Archives?
No,
I'm not.
It's a spooky podcast that is. It starts off very episodic, where it's basically an anthology horror about this institute called the Magnus Institute that investigates paranormal activity in the UK. and it's taken through the lens of the archivist, John, who is going through these old records, trying to organize them. And so he's basically just reading statements aloud for people who were affected by paranormal activity. And so like it's very episodic in the beginning, but there's specifically one of these statements that's about a like a filmmaker who goes mad trying to recreate a film that only he had seen, that was like about this like spider monster. And like that's immediately what your description made me think of, is like this guy just going mad trying to recreate something that nobody else knew what it was, and spending like his entire life's work trying to recreate this thing that was so obscure and so like just bizarre that it like drove him mad trying to recreate it. And that's
great. That sounds really good.
It's a really great series. I recommend to anybody, especially if you're looking for something spooky. It starts off very episodic, like I said, like it's just like each episode is one statement with some like follow-up information, but then it does get like an overarching plot. You get to know the characters, and the ending, I think there's 5 seasons. The 4th season, I'll just say this, the apocalypse happens. And that's not the end of the series. The series doesn't end with the apocalypse. The 5th season is, well, what do you do after the apocalypse? And so I think they take it a really interesting place, because everybody, like even the actors, you know, like the voice actors, when they were doing it, they would hear their character arcs, and then and then it would end with, and then there was the apocalypse, and nobody would ask like what happened after. They're like, oh, okay, that's the end, you know, the apocalypse happens, okay, yeah, I get that. And then there was apparently one actor who was like, okay, but what about after that? And they're like, hey, you get it, it's not the end.
That's kind of like Googling what you think the hell happened in Mad God on Reddit.
Yeah.
Reading all these people's mad theories.
Yeah. Well, that's what made me think of it, because it's like, in that one story, it's just this guy who goes mad trying to recreate something. Yeah. But highly recommend. It's an excellent audio drama, and they're making a sequel. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've spent too much time. So what have you guys been seeing in Spooky Dome?
I saw, so other than They Live, I saw The Menu.
Good.
Yeah, and I just kind of, you know, it's just a really fascinating movie about how, you know, something like how you can like love something, like create something and make something, and like how, you know, it's kind of the nature of the world with capitalists and such. Kind of just can drain that enjoyment out of it until there's nothing left except for an empty murderous husk.
It's so good. I love that movie.
I loved it.
The Menu is on my list to watch as well. I have so many things I need to watch. Oy vey.
I didn't know what to expect from it, but it was really good.
It was really good. It was fun.
I feel like it's been a very good like couple of years for horror movies, like that are out of the box and like
A24 ever since The Witch, it seems like people are upping the notch on everything.
Yeah, because I think there was definitely a horror movie slump where like people didn't really know where to go from here. There was a big thing about like, but let's just do possession movies and things like Paranormal Activity. That did like, well.
Piranha 3D and like My Bloody Valentine, and now we're trying again.
Yeah,
well, I heard My Bloody Valentine was decent.
I didn't see it. I just have heard.
I've heard it was out of like any of like the slasher remakes, that was one of the better ones. Okay. But I still get the sentiment of what you're saying, though.
Yeah, and like I don't mind a good slasher, but I also, you know, I think for a while horror was phoning it in. I think there was like there was of course some gems in there, but it I don't know, it seems like it's like the past couple of years have been like an advent in horror where it's like, you know what, we're trying again. We're trying to be fucking spooky, and maybe it's because, you know, the world's been real fucked up lately, and so they're like, well, we have to up the ante. We can't just make your standard horror movie. We got to make people be afraid of something, and the whole world is on fire, so it can't just be that.
I saw The Guest.
I haven't seen that one.
That was fun.
Okay.
I mean, it's has a very 80s style soundtrack. I think it's from like 2015, but it stars this very charming veteran who was discharged from the military, and he goes to this house that, you know, his one of his comrades in arms was killed in action. So he goes to visit the family and said, you know, I was gonna tell you guys that you know, he wanted me to tell you that she loved you. And they, you know, it's like this very, very serious opening moment. But there's like, and it's just like, and they offer to let him stay because, you know, they remind them of their deceased son, their deceased brother, and such. And it's like, but you quickly start to learn there's like, despite his like really charming nature, there's something very wrong with him.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and I know it sounded dark. It sounds dark at the beginning, and there it does take itself seriously, but it's also very entertaining. And I can't because the character is like, you know, like he'll be like really like charming, really nice, but then like something will make him just go, or what? So, you know, like, and like he'll like get like really intense, and it's fun, but it takes itself seriously.
That's giving me like Barry vibes, like, you know how Barry would be like putting on the front of being like, I'm a well-adjusted human, and then like snap, you know. Yeah.
I think you both would like it. It's good. Oh god.
I was just gonna say, have either of you seen Wally's Wonderland?
No,
I have not.
Nick Cage.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it, but it looks fun.
So highly recommend. It is both hilarious. It's hilarious. It's so funny, and it is a horror movie. But like, okay, so the premise here is that Nick Cage is a dude who's driving, and he blows out the tires on his car, and he's like in the middle of nowhere, and so he needs to go and get them fixed, and there's only like one place to get them fixed, but they need to wait for, like, it's going to take a while for it to get fixed. And he's like, okay, whatever, you know, do you take, you know, he's like trying to pay via card, and they're like, sorry, we don't accept card out here because we don't actually get like the service to like do anything with it, cash only. And there's like an ATM, but the ATM's broken, you know. And so throughout this entire thing, he's completely silent. He does not say a word. Everything is like through like facial like acting and like handing items, and you know. And so they're like, okay, well, we can't, we know you can't pay because you can't get cash, and like, but we need you to pay for the work we've done in your car to fix it. And they're like, how about this? You just spend one night cleaning up this place for us that we're trying to open, and that'll pay off your debt to us, and then you can leave. And he's just like, okay, but without words, because he doesn't speak. He does not say anything. And he goes to go clean up this place, and it turns out this place is an old Chuck E. Cheese style pizzeria. It is a Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic.
I was gonna say, is this
horror show? And Nick Cage is there specifically to clean it. And so like he's just kind of ignoring the animatronics and getting mad at them when they interrupt him trying to do his job. And like he'll like really specifically, like it'll be like time for him to go on break, because you know he's like set times for himself to like take lunch and go on break, and he'll be like in the middle of a fight with an animatronic, and then like, you know, like look at like his watch or his alarm will go off, and he'll be like just turns and walks away and like goes and like eats a sandwich and then comes back. And like there's of course there's a bunch of teens that break in and are like, you know, in horrible danger, but like he really kind of doesn't give a shit. He's just trying to do his job. It is like the funniest thing. There's like animatronics murdering people, and he's just upset because they're making a mess.
That's the perfect Nick Cage.
Nobody so could do good. That. It is so good, and he doesn't say anything in the entire movie.
Oh my gosh, that sounds great.
It's great. It's amazing. Highly recommend. It is a very fun horror movie. It's so funny. You'll enjoy yourself. There's some good kills. Animatronic horror. And Nick Cage just trying to do his goddamn job. He's just doing his job. He wants to do his job and be done.
So the other movie I saw recently, I saw Deep Rising. It's a 1998 horror action movie from the same director that eventually did The Mummy, like the good Mummy.
The original.
Well, not the original,
the Brendan Fraser one.
I feel like I've seen Deep Rising. Describe the plot.
Okay, so
or at least some.
Okay, I mean it's a fun movie, but it's basically this one guy who basically inspired Nathan Drake is piloting a boat. He's escorting a questionable crew of what is like spec ops soldiers, and his motto is if you pay I don't care, or something along those lines. So they are going to apparently board a super luxurious, like impossibly humongous cruise ship that is just loaded with cash, and then do like a whole hostage situation with it and try to get all their money, because it has like a bunch of like the wealthiest people on board. But when they get there, there's no one there. Like the boat's empty. Like the boat feels empty, and there's like just blood everywhere, and it's just like, what the fuck? And it just kind of goes from there. It's a ridiculous and very silly movie. Like, as I said, like the main character, like you can tell, like definitely inspired the creation of Nathan Drake, especially from both his look and also just his like commentary of things. It's like, oh, okay. And then some of the monster designs, I think I was told that they inspired some of the later Resident Evil monster designs.
That would make sense from what I remember from Deep Rising.
It's a very fun movie. The effects are very 90s CGI and very cheesy, but but it's fun. But yes, I'd recommend it. It's fun.
I will say that about Rose Red. Effects kind of dated. Some of them are very well done. Other ones you're like, I'm sorry. That looks hilarious. This is supposed to be scary right now?
Any 90s and 2000s visual effects or something like this.
Yeah, like certain times it really works well. Other times you're like, oh my God. A movie I've been meaning to watch, and I don't know if I'll get to it in spooky season, is 13 Ghosts. I don't know if you remember this movie or if you've seen this movie. Okay, so I need to rewatch it. I need to see if it's as weird as I remember. But the basic premise of 13 Ghosts is that, like, a family is either moving into or staying overnight at this house that has 13 ghosts in it. Like, 13 specific ghosts that all seem to serve some kind of purpose. And they're all given names that are, like, tropes, kind of. Like there's the princess, who was a young woman who was heartbroken and committed suicide. And then there's like the, I think he might just be called the prince, or something like that. But it's he was a guy who got into a motorcycle accident or something, but he was like a young, charming kind of James Dean type who got into a motorcycle accident and died. But then those are kind of the normal ones, but then there's some really weird, fucked up shit. Like I think there's one like called like the baby, who is like a giant baby man, like who you don't really know how he died. But like this family is like encountering all these ghosts throughout the night, and like there's some sort of weird premise where like these ghosts are being trapped there to power something. Like I don't know, it's a weird fucking movie, but it's one of those movies that's stuck with me ever since I watched it. So like I intend to watch it again, because I haven't watched it since I think I was in middle school or high school, but I still like remember parts of this movie, and I'm like, does it hold up? What do these graphics even look like? Like what is this movie gonna look like? and it has Tony Shalhoub in it. He's like the dad. Or the owner of the house. One of the two. I don't remember. Like I said, like I don't remember if they're just staying there, if they bought the house. Like I don't know. But yeah, the ghosts were fucking wild. Like there's one that's just called the torso. That is just a torso.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm like, I understand why that's disturbing, but also how is that ghost gonna hurt you?
Come on.
It doesn't even have arms.
It doesn't have arms.
No. It has no arms or legs, and I don't even remember. I think it has a head, but it has no arms and legs. And I'm like,
I'm gonna bite you.
Yeah, I understand why this is disturbing. I don't understand why I should be afraid of it. It has no arms or legs. Yeah.
It has ghost powers.
Yeah, and I mean, it does have ghost powers, but yeah, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, the ghosts are fucking wild. And I've never forgotten this movie. I think there's something about like a hammer or something. I don't know, like the torso and the baby, and then you have the totally normal, like the prince and the princess. Like, yeah, those are like some standard ghosts, and then you have the fucking torso, and I'm like, what is this movie? So I recommend everybody watch it, and we see what it's like now. Because the torso.
The torso.
The torso.
So I don't know if you had an end piece, but I have a suggestion if you don't have one.
I do not have one. What's up?
So instead of ranking things, because I feel like I've watched mostly good ones, I figured we could do questions about the films. Like, my first idea was, what was the best kill?
Ooh.
It doesn't have to be recently if you've seen not a lot. It could be just from anyone you remember. I'll start if you don't have one, because I have been thinking about this one ever since I saw it recently.
Okay, so you mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay, you're stealing mine, but go for it, yeah.
Best kill, Johnny Depp on the bed.
That was exactly my answer to this. My God, the blood fountain.
Yeah, getting like sucked into the bed and just giant blood fountain that fills the entire room.
It's fantastic.
It's so great. So campy and ridiculous. And apparently it was actually kind of dangerous. Because because they were in like a sealed like set so that it could hold the blood in. And then they were, to get like the camera shots, they were moving it. They were moving the room that they were in to get the shots, and it sprung a leak.
The blood room sprung a leak.
Yeah, the blood room sprung a leak. And so it was this massive problem. Like, it was super dangerous. Because they're like, yes, our blood room, it'll be totally fine. And then the blood room starts leaking around a bunch of electronic equipment. And they're like, oh shit.
That's kind of what almost happened to Slipknot, except for instead of fake blood, it was them just peeing on each other too much on stage that they almost electrocuted them.
My God.
But yeah, so I think that's my best kill in a horror movie, just because it's the funniest thing.
It was my answer too. I don't know if it can be topped.
Yeah.
I'll go with something recent. It was from The Guest. I don't know. I don't know if it would constitute as. I mean, he does. Inevitably, tension ramps up and he does kind of snap. But that's kind of to be given.
Yeah.
The kill I'm kind of referencing is he goes into a building, shoots somebody, which and then he comes out of the building, and there's still people in there like fearing for their lives. He just nonchalantly just pulls out 2 grenades, just pops them, just rolls them in, and just walks away. Big explosion.
I'll give an alternative one then, since that was. I mean, it's the best answer.
Your guys is the best answer. Mine was just a recent one that I remember that made me laugh a lot.
Yeah.
There's a scene in The Mist that I'll give. So their volunteer goes. He's going to go to the car to get a shotgun, and they tie a rope to him, and they pull him back, and they pull back just legs.
Yes, I remember that. I do remember that.
That one was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
And I had another question, unless you guys have one.
I was going to ask, what horror movie if you had to be in a horror movie, what horror movie do you want to be in? What do you think you can survive?
That's a tough one. Of the ones I've seen, none. It seems like. You know, it seems like the best option would probably be Megan, because it seems like if you just didn't involve yourself in the robot factory world, you may not get killed by the robot girl.
Yeah, if you just don't engage.
I'm not a part of this project.
Yeah. I think for recent things I watch, I think I'll say Rose Red, because kind of like they set out very specific rules in the beginning of like the movie to be like, if you do these things, you'll be safe in Rose Red. And like the way people die in that movie is not following the rules. And to be fair, sometimes they are tricked by the house. Sometimes the house does trick them. But like a lot of them are really simple, like don't wander off alone. Like stick with a buddy system, or just like everybody could have just stayed in the central area of the house, and like we wouldn't have a movie, but like it's really easy to avoid, even if you have to go there, because they're just staying for a weekend. So it's like one weekend where you follow some rules. Yeah, I could do that. If you just follow the rules, in theory, you're fine.
That's a tough one, Riley. Do you have a survivable?
God, that's. That's my loading screen, apparently. Yeah, I don't know.
I was looking through mine. Most of them, no.
Yeah, most of them, no. I mean, the ones I've seen, if we do the guest, I'd get murdered, easily. If I do, Deep Rising, then my bones will be. I will be liquefied alive. God. They Live, yeah, but that's. I don't really have an answer. I'm just like.
From the movies you've seen, you will die.
From all the movies I will see, I will probably not make it. Maybe I think maybe I'd like to do that zombie musical. Because if I die, at least I'll die singing and happy.
Yeah. What is that called again? I've forgotten.
It's good though.
It's good. Hold on. Let me. It should be easy to find. Zombie High School Musical.
Okay. I have one while we wait. What was the dumbest kill? Could be the person was dumb, or the way in which they were killed was dumb. And I can answer that while we wait. I'm not going to spoil it, but let's just say bodies, and I'm just going to say a name. Pete Davidson.
The zombie musical is Anna and the Apocalypse.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
It's really good. It's really fun. It's very Christmassy. You can save it for Christmas.
It's a Christmas Halloween musical.
All right.
About zombies.
That's not Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to watch Bodies, but Pete Davidson is in it, and his death is ridiculous and stupid. I won't spoil anything else.
Okay, so since I watched what's it called? Final Destination.
Oh yeah, of course. This is great for that.
Yeah. The one death that like really stuck with me was as being just like so many things. It's so dumb. Is the teacher. Because the teacher who dies in the first Final Destination, it's like this death is going overkill to try and kill this one woman, because like first what happens is like the gas on her stove is like turned on, like she's like making tea or something, and like a tea towel like lights up, and then like her house is starting to be on fire, and then like she like trips over something and falls and like hits her head, and you're like, oh okay, she's going to burn to death, like okay, that's whatever, she's gonna die in this fire. But then like she's not unconscious, she's actually still awake, and so she's trying to get up because like something fell on her, like her legs or something. and she's trying to pull herself up. And while she's trying to pull herself up, she somehow pulls down an entire knife block onto her body and knives everywhere. And then the main character in Final Destination, he like runs into the house trying to save her because he had been trying to warn her. And like he just sees her on the ground, just knives sticking out of her body, house is on fire, and he's like, I can still save her. And I'm like, dude, no.
Cut your losses.
Yeah, get out of there. And instead he like gets his hands all over the knives and leaves a bloody footprint, and it's like, oh my God.
I'm gonna say my answer is the babysitter from Jurassic World.
Oh, yeah. So good.
That was so stupid.
That was dumb.
That's a great
And it was
answer.
a character that didn't really even deserve
Yeah,
that.
she didn't deserve that.
Like, why?
Oh, I
That's
remember
really
watching
good.
that and being like, this seems harsh.
But they did that in the first one too with the guy on the toilet.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, but he had a bit more.
He had it coming.
He was a lawyer that had it coming.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
the
the
babysitter.
baby. I just think like they were trying to recreate the guy in the toilet, but they
Yeah.
did to a character that didn't deserve it. Like,
I'm gonna guess there was some deleted scenes where the babysitter was just an asshole,
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
and like, you know,
and that justified it, but then they cut it out.
Then they cut it out for some reason.
Yeah. Maybe
Stupid
just for
death.
time.
Well, we already put too much effects in this, so we're gonna keep it.
Yeah. Oh.
All right. Was there anything else y'all wanted to add?
I have one more if we want. Otherwise, we can just cut right here.
Your call, Corinne.
I can go for one more.
Okay.
Okay. And what was the not necessarily the most disturbing movie, but what had the most disturbing scene or sequence of the ones you've seen? Like it messed with your head, or
So you mentioned Let the Right Ones In.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let the Right One In. There's a scene, and it okay, so not to spoil too much for Let the Right One In, but there's like a young boy, like a tween, and he is bullied at school. You know, he doesn't really have any friends, and he meets this girl who, you know, he becomes friends with, and she doesn't seem to, you know, have very many friends either. She's homeschooled, and you later find out she's a vampire, but she murders all of his bullies in a pool. And like, yes, they're bullies. They were not good kids, but they are also still children. And they are viciously murdered in a terrifying way.
Kind of glorious in how ridiculously over the top it is.
It's so over the top. And like, I'm watching it, I'm like, man, I feel very vindicated for this kid, but also, oh my God, you just made me think all this child murder was acceptable. You. Yeah, and I think that's really stuck with me, is that the bullies murdered in the pool.
I don't know what it says about me that I cheered that scene on.
Well, I did cheer it on. And that was the problem. Because I still think back now and I'm like, you made me cheer on a bunch of child murder. That's what you did.
It reminds me of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they beat up the kids, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, they really went through on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like they could have made it less brutal. They could have made it implied. They could have done so many different things to make it so you're not like, I'm watching these children being brutally murdered and enjoying it. And that's why it sticks with me, because it was just such like you were like, yes, this is morally correct, and then you, after the movie, you're like, wait a minute.
I might venture a guess that I know Riley's, but we'll see. Is it from the menu?
It's not.
Okay.
But the menu had a lot of good ones in it. Or a lot of, you know, good moments.
Mind fuck moments.
Yes. Mine, God, I just had it. Why did I just had it in my brain and now it's gone. Come on. sorry, just 1 second. God.
I'll do mine while you fill. First of all, the entirety of Mad Gods, but that doesn't really answer my question.
No.
But there's a scene in the movie Men where I don't even know if I can give much context without spoiling the film, where basically there's a version of birth where a man comes out of another man over and over again in a creepy, like, monster opens up and monster person comes out. Oh, and it just repeats for like 5 minutes when you're like,
there's
and it just
still
keeps
men
going, and you're just like, all right, this is entirely fucked. And that's the best version I can give without spoiling it.
I remember now. So it's actually from Midnight Mass.
Okay.
And it's not even that it was that the scene itself is that scary. It's just that it's an image that sticks in my mind, and I can't say it without spoiling it.
Okay.
But there's some images in that kind of stick with you. And there's one big one like later in the series that's kind of like shit.
on it, not necessarily on deaths, but like images that have stuck with you. From Annihilation, there is like the bear creature with the woman's voice.
Yeah, this he's really good at making shit like that.
Yeah, that was such a scene. Like, I still think about that sometimes, and it is, it's horrifying. It's wonderful. Like, I love that movie. Watch Annihilation if you haven't. It's so good.
Yeah.
I loved it.
The ending, I'm still confused what happened.
He does that though. That's like his thing.
Yeah, like I'm still like, I kind of get it. I don't know, but the buildup, the atmosphere, the tension, the weird shit, it's beautiful and also so scary.
Like that Men is exactly the same vibe with the exact same style of ending.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't know what happened, but I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, another one for me, I just always remember the Babadook when she's staring down the hallway, and all of a sudden the shadow just becomes more defined until like the fingers go out, and it's just like that. Like I used to like as an adult, I used to always sleep with the lights on because I would see shit in the shadows, and that movie kind of played on my fear of that. So it's like that's one thing that kind of really sticks with me.
Does it help your fear that the Babadook is now a gay icon?
Yes.
Good.
The monster in the shadows is an icon.
My favorite meme to come out of that movie.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't know. That seems like a pretty good place to stop. Babadook's a gay icon.
All right. And with that was the Riley and Friends podcast. If you haven't, please like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. Was there anything you two wanted to add or plug at the end here?
Well, I always want to plug my podcast. Check out Wham Bam. Thank you, ma'am. We are available everywhere podcasts are potted.
And casted too.
And casted everywhere they're potted, everywhere they're casted. It's a comedy, romance novel, and smut analysis podcast. We read romance and smut. We analyze it. We drink. It gets a little ridiculous. We actually just had our new mini episode format go out where every other week we have the main episode, which is long. It's a long discussion of the book. And then we have a mini episode, which we call a foreplay, where we just talk about something that has to do with sex, romance, kind of things like that. And the very first one was Sexy or Not Halloween Costume Editions, where we were looking at sexy, in quotation marks, Halloween costumes and figuring out if they were sexy or not. We each brought some to the table and we were like, made a game out of it. It was a lot of fun. It just came out on the 18th, so please go take a listen. It's very fun. And horrifying, some of the costumes we found. Oh my God. And then our Halloween episode actually airs on the 25th, so a few days from now. We read Stalked by the Kraken. It's a tentacle book. It seemed Halloween appropriate.
That's great.
Get your consenticles here. we had a really great time with it. It's a really funny episode. So come and check us out. The next book that we have after that one is Pirates of Alitheria, which is essentially based on Elizabeth Swann and Pirates of the Caribbean, but a lot gayer and with dragons. It's really well written. It's just like, it's all about the tension, and it's excellent. It is such a good book. Highly recommend if you like lesbians and pirates and dragons.
I think every pitch should end with a gare and with more dragons.
Yes, yeah. It's Pirates of the Caribbean or Elizabeth Swann, gare with more dragons. Just impossibly gay. It's a good compliment to Our Flag Means Death.
Yes.
So if you like Our Flag Means Death, you'll probably like Pirates of Alitheria, and it has a sequel coming out in December. So
okay.
Yeah, so check out my podcast. It's fun. I enjoy it. It's funny. It's ridiculous. We also read some good books, though. We also read tentacle porn. So there's something for everybody, I'd like to say.
Gabe, was there anything you'd like to plug?
You know what? Yes. Watch Mad Gods. I want other people to experience what I experienced.
Okay. You want other people to know.
I want you to know what I've seen. That's it. Just that one.
All right. And with
everybody watch Mad Gods.
Everybody watch Mad Gods. All right. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.